Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Om. May Brahman protect us both. May Brahman bestow upon us both the fruit of knowledge. May we both obtain the energy to acquire knowledge. May what we both study reveal the truth. May we cherish no ill feeling toward each other. Om. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Sritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namah. So first, what did we discuss in our last class on the Sri Ramakrishna, the great master? First of all, we said Sri Ramakrishna's father, Kshudiram, had passed away. So what was the effect of this death upon everybody, whole family, but especially upon Sri Ramakrishna? Definitely, like Buddha, he must have felt the unreality or ephemerality of this world. We also witness death, but it doesn't seem to have any effect at all, if at all. Very interesting, we have to, even though sometimes I put it a little bit humorously, we have to accept it. Supposing there is a 90 years old person, man or woman, and it may be parent or it may be uncle, whatever, dies. And particularly the person may not be very loving, or we may not have that close relationship, even between parents and children, there may not be that close a relationship. Usually there is, but sometimes not necessary. So imagine what would be the effect of this death. A little bit of sadness could be there. Parents means, I'm sure definitely some sentiment is there. But imagine, supposing this uncle died and he is a billionaire and he has no children. What would be the effect of that person's death? Or in fact, even before he died, what would be the thoughts that would be passing in the minds of the people? This is our normal person's reactions. So that means, where is the value? Was he looking at the death, or was he looking at what profit the person gets? So suppose a person gets £1 billion. Imagine, it's a beautiful scenario, and at the same time it is not purely imagination. There is a story in the Purana, I am just putting it in the way. So here is a person and who comes to know that somebody died and he is the only person beneficiary, and he is going to inherit so much money. And if that person who is rich, wealthy, is not old, what type of thoughts this person will be entertaining? If that person is really old and expected to pass away sooner or later, what type of thoughts he will be cherishing? You see, it makes a lot of difference. Now, the person is thinking of death, or is he thinking of what am I going to get? Where is his identity? That is the most important point. The identity is not on death, not on the ephemerality, but on the worldly idea. That is called worldliness. Okay, imagine, add to this, the person knows my rich uncle is going to die and leave me a lot of money. Imagine at the same time he comes to know he has only 2 days to live. Now imagine what would be his thought. Do you think a person really cares for, even if I inherit? For 2 days, if anyone says, I will make you a billionaire, what would be your thoughts about it? See, so what is the point here? We are also frightened of death, but never the death of other beings, but only the death of one's own being. Now we have discussed extensively. A great change had come in Gadadhar. What was the change? That death is the ultimate destiny of every being that is born. We also know it intellectually, but we don't pay attention until it is made certain in our minds. And when a person really knows he is going to die, this most important point we have to remember in spiritual life, we need to meditate upon death. In fact, Swami Vivekananda, do you know how he defined sannyasa? Sannyasa is love of death. Anybody who doesn't love death, he cannot become a monk. It's a very profound statement. We will discuss in course of time. This is what happened to Bhagavan Buddha, we referred to in our last class. So that was the one point we discussed. Even though outwardly he was very cheerful. And second change that came was, now he became very thoughtful. Third change that came was, he was always hovering near his mother, because he found out so long as he was near her, she forgets her husband's death, and she is made very happy by Sri Ramakrishna, Gadadhar. You know why? What is the reason? The reason, here is the most wonderful point. He was an embodiment of happiness. So does this happiness diminish because of either death or anything? There are some people by nature very happy. Some people sometimes happy, sometimes not happy. But there are some people perpetually cast a royal face. Rarely the cloud lifts from their faces. Okay, what is important point here? That he was by nature very happy person. How do we know? You enter into a room, outside it is cold. The moment you enter into this room, you feel warmth. What does that mean? That means there is fire. So what is the nature of the fire? To give heat. But the moment you enter into the room, you can infer that there is fire here. So the moment you say it is very warm, what do you mean by that? That means you are repeating the same words, fire. Because without fire can there be heat? So you know that this is cold, this is hot. Like that, if you find here are people, they are very happy in the presence of somebody. But what is my point here? If a person can make other people happier, can that person himself remain unhappy person? But at the same time, another point we have to, it doesn't mean that he is always smiling, laughing. He may be very serious, but his very nature exudes, just comes out like fire, even if you cover it, still the place will be warm. So this was one of the changes that came. What is the other change that came? He started mixing with sadhus who used to stay there near Kamarpukur very much. You know that we discussed at that point. He used to go and then he used to learn good things, and he was not a fool. He used to observe who is a genuine monk and who is not. And we also discussed that at first Chandramani Devi didn't have any objection. But one day he came back very happily with a new piece of cloth torn into two. One is Kaupina, he put on, Pagadi he put on, I think. He said, "Mom, look at me, I have become a monk." And that made her very apprehensive. So then she started weeping. Then Sri Ramakrishna understood, why are you weeping? Maybe these holy people, sadhus, maybe they are influencing and he will go away with them. Either he will go away with them or they will take him away. Then immediately, what was Gadadhar's reaction? Whatever makes my mother unhappy, I will not do it. And we know that he went for the last time to say goodbye to the sadhus, and then they heard it and said, "Why is it you don't want to come to us any longer?" In a body, they came and they assured her, "Mother, we are not heartless people. We are not here to take this small child away. We love your boy because he is so pure." Because they also could understand He was a very pure boy. We are not going to commit that sin of kidnapping your son. And she was assured. So he started going. That was one of the changes that came after his father's passing away. These are the things. Repeated bhava samadhi. How many times? At least we know 3 times. How many times he had when he was alone? Nobody noticed it. He was having bhava samadhi, kind of samadhi. We don't know. 3 times we know. The first time it was an aesthetic experience. He was walking in the fields and the whole sky was covered with clouds, thick black clouds, and a flock of pure white cranes were flowing across, and that scenery threw him into aesthetic samadhi. There are many points here. I will not go into it because many people, especially the teachers of aesthetics, they say aesthetic joy is called Brahmananda. It's not really Brahmananda. It is equated with Brahmananda. That is why there are another name for that joy in aesthetics is called rasa. Navarasa. 9 types of feelings which bring joy. And one of them is viraha. Viraha means, separation between the lover and the beloved. Now, when an ordinary worldly person is separated from what he loves, what is the natural reaction? Sadness, suffering, grief, etc., depression, etc., isn't it? But in this case, we are not talking about actual events in life. We are talking about aesthetics. Aesthetics means what? It could be a painting, it could be a drama, it could be a poem. So when we witness such a beautiful scenery, where there is a viraha, to the witness, to the spectator, does it cause joy or unhappiness? There is a caveat there. We have to add experience of joy through the experience of viraha. The man, the witness, totally identifies himself with the scenario imaginarily, and then he should feel unhappy, isn't it? But it only gives real happiness. Do you know why? Because he knows this is an aesthetic joy. This is not a real life event. It is unreally real. Unreally, this is called aesthetic joy. That's what Sri Ramakrishna had become very important. That was the first experience. How many times he had that experience, we don't know. And we know that in his life, many times he had beautiful image of Divine Mother that would throw him into that ecstatic state. When Sri Ramakrishna used to hear beautiful songs, and when I mean beautiful songs, I mean 2 things. The first is the song is really beautiful. The second is the way it is rendered beautifully, because the same song can be murdered also by some people. So that is what Sri Ramakrishna's many times he experienced. So both bhava as well as saundarya. That's why one of the supreme values, both according to Eastern and Western philosophy, is saundarya, truth, goodness and beauty. Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. All the 3 are there. So first experience was this, aesthetic experience. He always had that. Second, when he was going on to visit Mother Vishalakshi, on the way, the devotees, the villagers were singing devotional songs, and suddenly he went into unconscious state. He didn't fall, but everybody was worried. Remember that incident? Everybody was now worried that what happens to this our visit, because you cannot leave that boy in that state. Then one lady, I think Prasanna, she got that inspiration that we are singing mother's songs on Divine Mother, so maybe the boy is possessed by the Divine Mother. So let us sing songs on the Divine Mother. And they uttered the name of the Mother Vishalakshi, and then he came down. And nothing happened. He was an incarnation of joy. So the second time we know definitely. What was the third occasion? Shivaratri day, when he was dressed as Shiva, he went into samadhi. I am going to talk a little bit about that, about these three incidents. First was an aesthetic joy. Second, he was not dressed like Vishalakshi, but he was deeply absorbed in the thought of Divine Mother, and he became totally, absorbed means totally, unconscious. He became unconscious. And the third occasion is slightly different because he was totally dressed as Shiva himself. So there is a lot of difference between these two. Now, what is common to all those things? The first, he completely lost his identity with the body and lost completely any identity with any ordinary worldly thought. Only one thought dominates. So what we have to know is there is a disease called fits. And what is fits? The person becomes totally unconscious. The person becomes totally unhappy. Before also, afterwards also. He suffers. He is unhappy. And that affects the physical health. In the case of Sri Ramakrishna or similar minded people, three effects are there. This is called, in spiritual practice, we call it upasana. The nearest translation is contemplation. So what is the difference between meditation and contemplation? Just I'll give a hint. What we call really meditation is total absorption of the mind in a particular idea. This is what we call meditation. But in contemplation, it could be a person is prostrating in front of an image, or he is watching a beautiful scenery. The mind is thinking with focus some thought, but he has not become unconscious. Or he may be taking some scriptural passages and deeply thinking about it. That is also called contemplation. So there is a slight difference. But when a person practices upasana, it is more near to meditation, what we call dharana, dhyana and samadhi. That's why it is called bhava samadhi. Bhava means feeling. Feeling becomes a door through which he enters into that state called samadhi. What happens when a person practices and enters even to a small extent into that samadhi state? Not what we call, Sri Ramakrishna entered into samadhi. We are not talking about samprajnat samadhi. We are talking about bhava samadhi. What is the difference? Three effects come. We have discussed it. I hope you will remember. First, chitta shuddhi. No man can enter into that state unless the mind becomes pure. It's not possible. Even for aesthetic ekagrata, he must have some purity. What is the purity? The ability to at least suppress any thoughts non-related to that subject, and the ability to focus on that particular subject is called chitta shuddhi. Then ekagrata. The mind becomes totally absorbed. And chitta vaishalyata. Chitta shuddhi, chitta ekagrata and chitta vaishalyata. What is vaishalyata? The mind becomes expanded. So the identity goes further than the body and mind. The more a person practices upasana, simple example is, Sri Ramakrishna used to do upasana of Hanuman. Now his mind became expanded. What does that mean? He forgot his own body and he became totally identified with Hanuman. Now Hanuman, who is Hanuman? Rama Bhakta. That means, who is Hanuman? He is that devotee who identifies himself with anybody who is a devotee of Rama. In fact, I would not say only Rama, I would say any devotee. So, if any devotee suffers, he suffers. If any devotee is happy, he is also happy. This is called chitta vaishalyata, expansion. In our case, what happens? Here is a man and his chitta is only me. Then he gets married. Then he expands. He and his wife. Then children come. So us and our children. Then grandchildren come. Usually that is where the Lakshmana Rekha stops. He will not go beyond that. But in this, we are talking about upasana. In this upasana, the man gets out of the body-mind identity and the ability to identify oneself with the other person. I'll just give a side note that even a lover of country, lover of humanity, one cannot identify oneself with anybody's body. That's not possible. When a husband says, I am identified with my wife, is this the body he is identified, or is that concept that this is someone who loves me, whom I also love? It is that idea, identity with the idea. That means the wife is not a person only, but she is also an idea. That's what most important. So when a person really does upasana, and we are all called upasakas, is it true? Yeah. Because the moment we take initiation, we are all presented with a book. What is it called? Upasana Paddhati. And what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to practice. When we practice means do upasana. What are we called? Upasaka. Sadhaka. Upasaka. So the same result must come. It is the idea, whether it is of God, of a guru, of humanity, the idea that it becomes, we become identified. So simultaneously what happens, one human being cannot identify himself with another idea. Only one idea can identify itself with the other idea. That means a upasaka himself knows, I am not the body-mind, but I am an idea. In fact, we are all dealing with ideas. It's a different subject. We won't go into it. So 3 effects we said. Every upasana must bring 3 effects. So if a person progressed in upasana 10%, he will get the effect, 3 effects also. How much percent?
10%.
10%. What is it? Chitta Shuddhi, Chitta Ekagrata, and Chitta Vaishalyata. Purity of the mind, first one. Concentration, focus, and the third one, expansion of one's identity. These 3 must happen. And this is what had happened to Gadadhar because he was totally forgetting himself. That means, do you see what I am talking about? The moment he is unconscious of what? Ordinary fits. A person becomes totally unconscious. He is also unconscious of the body, but he is not identified with anything else, like deep sleep. Whereas here, he is fully conscious. He is totally unconscious so far as the body and external world is concerned. But he is fully conscious about that particular idea with which he had become one. Fully conscious. That's why it doesn't affect the body, rather it makes the body even more healthier. You know why? Because our problem is we are so burdened with our body, the body becomes a kind of heavy drag. It is dragging us. But here is a person quickly is able to overcome the body consciousness. And what rest the person gets. If a person has a deep sleep, how much rest that person gets? And can you just imagine, even if you can have deep sleep for 5 minutes, you can get tremendous amount of rest. Rest itself is, all your tiredness, everything will vanish. That is why Sri Ramakrishna used to say, if a person has become more sattvic, then he doesn't need so much of sleep. Even worldly people, intellectual people, Edison, how many hours he was sleeping? Hardly 2-3 hours. Gandhiji also. Everybody. Why? How are they capable of sleeping so less and yet very functional in every way? That's because they were getting enough amount of that relaxation through the work. So if you are very happy about your job, then you don't need so much. If you don't like somebody, even 5 minutes talk with that person makes you extremely tired. But if you love a person, then even 20 hours will only make you more changa ho jayega. This is Sri Ramakrishna's health was never affected. On the contrary, it was most wonderful health. In fact, he was the healthiest person so far as we know. Why? What is the definition of health? Absence of body awareness is defined as health. If that is the case, are we healthy or unhealthy? Yeah, that's why if any problem, where our whole mind is there, we are dragging, or the body is dragging us wherever it goes. So these are the three effects have become so natural for Gadadhar. And then keeping company of the sadhus. In this respect, I raised a point. What is that point? Here is the note. So first of all, dress. On the third occasion, when Sri Ramakrishna was dressed in the dress of Lord Shiva, he became totally identified with Lord Shiva. What a marvelous thing it is. Now, few notes. Sri Ramakrishna's, first of all, certain examples are there. First of all, Sri Ramakrishna gives this example. Once there was a drama and a man acted the role of a monk. And he acted it so nicely, some rich people who came to witness that one, he was so pleased. He said, "Hey, you come here, I'll give you a rupee." The man said, "No, I cannot accept it." You remember the story? So what happened? This man went inside into the green room and changed his dress, and he put on his old dress and came back to this old man and said, "Now give me that rupee." He said, "But when I offered it to you, you refused to take it." He said, "What was the dress I was in at that time? I was putting on ochre robes, the dress of a monk. So as a monk, I cannot accept. How much meaning is there even in this? As a monk, I cannot accept. He was only an actor. But Sri Ramakrishna is giving this example, so I cannot accept it. Now, I have kept that ochre robe there. Now you give me the rupee." What does Sri Ramakrishna mean by this teaching? That if any person puts on any particular dress, his behavior should be appropriate to it. Okay. Another note on this, Holy Mother was asked, why should a monk put on ochre robe? What was the reply he gave? Somebody asked Holy Mother, and Holy Mother gave a reply. Do you know what the reply gave? It is like a dog with a collar. If anybody sees a dog with a collar in the street, then people know this dog belongs to someone, so they will not harm. But if it is without collar, it is called street dog. Then they will just collect it and take it to the dog kennel and do whatever they like. When ordinary people see a monk in this particular dress, many things happen simultaneously. The first thing that happens is people know here is a monk. We are not only talking about genuine monk, we are also talking the ideal. They respect. Not only why do they respect? Because it is a reminder to them that your goal of life is also one day to become a monk. You know what is the four supreme values according to Hinduism? Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. And moksha is possible only for a monk, not for anybody, only for a monk. So you may say, then I say, what is a monk? Is it to take the fourth ashrama called sannyasa ashrama? Not necessarily. Some people do take. But everybody has to become mentally a sannyasi. What does that mean? That means I am not the body, I am not the mind. Anybody who knows I am not the body and mind, he or she is the real monk or nun. That is the idea. That without giving up the attachment to the body and mind, how is it possible to identify oneself with God? Identity with Atman is possible only when there is no identity with body and mind. So this is the idea. If I am identified with the body and mind, I am not identified with the Atman. If I am identified with Atman, I am not identified with body and mind. So now we have a choice. We cannot have both. Therefore, this taking sannyasa means it is to have that idea, I am not the body and mind. So that's why sannyasa is of two types. Prior to realization, it is called vividisha sannyasa, and after realization called Vidvat Sannyasa. So most of us, we belong to the prayer class. We want to progress in spiritual life. In that sense, all of you, if you want to progress in spiritual life, you are also monks or nuns, even though you may not call yourself, but you have to be. If you say I am a spiritual aspirant, you have to say I am an aspiring monk. But that is the truth. I want to identify myself with God. Simple words. That is what is called spiritual aspiration. And to progress in that life is called spiritual life, spiritual practice, spiritual progress. So this is what sannyasins like. That's why Sri Ramakrishna was very particular that if a person has put on this monk's life, man or woman, they should try to behave properly. And Sri Ramakrishna also makes a remark. One day a man came dressed in an ochre cloth, and then, said, you are not really a monk. And why this, what you call, bhek dharana? Why show to the people I am a renouncer like that? Because people will respect. And if they respect, and anybody takes that respect, cheating other people, he will become ultimately cheated. So one need not be perfect, but one should at least try to live a life even though it is a struggle. That is the idea. Now, there is what Sri Ramakrishna used to say is to define the word truthfulness. Observe, practice truthfulness. He has a beautiful saying in Bengali. What is truthfulness? Man mok ek kora. So the mind, the speech and the action, these three bodies must be tallying in harmony. A man thinks something and he talks something else and he behaves in a totally different way. This is called split personality. Spiritually, most of us are suffering from split personality, schizophrenia, spiritual schizophrenia. It is true. Sri Ramakrishna permitted it in the case of a great, genuine, absolutely devotee of God. He says, he puts on the marks of a Shiva, but through mouth he is uttering Harinam. But in his heart, he is meditating on the Divine Mother only. So that people, if they see from a distance, they think he is a devotee of Shiva. And those who come near and hear, they think, he is a Vaishnava, he is only taking us. But in reality, secretly, this is permitted. This is what Sri Ramakrishna was very particular. If there is a dress, the role must be there. The speech and the thought and the action must be in harmony with the particular dress. Now, there are some thoughts we are talking about. First of all, we will take two examples. When he was practicing Madhura Bhava, sweet mood, he used to dress like a woman. And how he used to behave? Like a woman, absolutely like a woman. But it has nothing to do with being a woman. It is something to do with being a spiritual sadhika, considering Sri Krishna as her beloved. And when he dressed as Hanuman, he was practicing Rama Bhakti. At that time he dressed himself as what? Now, why did he need to dress as a woman? Why did he need to dress himself like a Hanuman? Was it really necessary or not?
Yes.
It is very necessary. Why? Because that even the slight trace of hypocrisy or separation from one's ideal, that will be obliterated by him being dressed. No, he was so particular about it. When he was practicing Islam sadhana, how did he dress? Like a Muslim. And he even wanted to eat what Muslims eat, biryani and all those things. Because Sri Ramakrishna, whatever spiritual sadhana he was doing, he adopted that dress, he adopted that food, he adopted those namaz, etc. And all those things he was doing. Just you have to imagine when he was doing namaz, how was he doing it? He must have thrown a cloth. So also religious marks is part of this ritual. So why we should put on this either Vaishnava marks or Shiva's marks? Why do we need? In South Indian Sri Vaishnava system, this is what whenever the disciple is initiated, there is a particular way. Marks will be given at 8 different places. Here, if you see Ramanuja's picture, here different parts of the body, the marks will be given. They give a what is called mystical meaning. It is to remind oneself, I am dedicated to God, like sacred thread. Mainly it consists of 3 threads. The symbolism is 3, that a person has taken a vow, he will have control over the thought, speech and action, or sthula sharira, sukshma sharira and karana sharira. That's what he wants to. This is a reminder. There is religious marks also. Then Holy Mother also used to say sometimes, the problem with this kind of is, clothes can generate terrible egotism, because identity. So he says, I am a monk, I am a nun, people did not bow down to me. This can come. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also showed the other way around. He wanted to inculcate highest reverence for a monk, anybody who renounces the world. So to teach it to his disciples, one day a donkey was passing in front of him. He threw an ochre cloth on it and made sastanga pranam, just to show people, if you find ochre cloth on anybody, you have to immediately show that respect. It doesn't mean that you go on judging this person, I know him, I know her, they are not leading good life. That's none of our business. The person is showing an ideal. That dress is showing a particular ideal. It is that we are to be reminded of that ideal, not to judge people like that. I also told this story of Swami Akhandananda's experience, if you remember. Once he was in a village, very briefly, and he stayed in a householder's home, and next morning he was supposed to go, but he was tired. He asked permission, I want to stay. Though that family, everybody goes out for work, manual work. So the house lady said probably the husband was dead or something. So she said, my son, you stay here, I have kept some food, you stay comfortably, eat food when you are hungry. Then he asked, how do you have that faith in me that I don't steal things and go away? Then she said, you see, it is our duty, we have been trained to revere monks and to serve them to the extent possible. And if they don't behave according to their dharma, then God will look after them. And in fact, she said that some time back, another monk came and bundled things and went away. But that did not prevent her from showing respect, because God is there. Karma phala, belief in karma phala. How strong belief in karma phala. So this is what Holy Mother was also telling. One has to live according to one's dress. Not only that, but it can also create the adverse reaction, pride. I am a senior monk and you are a junior monk. Who should make pranams to whom? And that's Swami Bhaskaranand is that story, if you remember. 2 monks met, one junior and one senior. 2 wandering monks met. One was very old, another was very young. And they started introducing themselves, and they found out to their great surprise, both were initiated by the same guru. But the senior monk doesn't want to accept that both of them are equal. Guru Bhais. Guru Bhai means equal. So he said, I'm happy that we are initiated by the same guru. But in the beginning, when we were young, our guru tested us for years and years and years. Only after hard test, he initiated us. Later on, he became very loose. He started initiating everybody and anybody. What was he telling? I do not wish to treat him as equivalent to me, because we are Guru Bhais. It can generate pride. In fact, that is there everywhere. Senior, junior, and then who is more spiritual, who has got more thicker japamala and thinner japamala, how many number of japamalas each person has got, and all this. But religious marks are good to remind ourselves that we have taken a vow to lead this kind of life. It is very helpful there. But there is also something which is very, very important for us. What is the role of a dress? What is the role of a dress? The only primary role of a dress is to protect us from inclement weather. This is the only function of true dress. That is why in South India, it is a hot place, hot country, and that's why Ramana Maharshi, excepting for a lion cloth, he never you will see with his shirt or with dhoti or anything like that. One towel and one this one. Somebody asked him, Bhagavan, why do you move like this? He said, you don't know the joy of moving in South India in this hot place. You go on putting black, and then they put on black heavy suit, boot, and then tie, and then shoes. How the price they pay, especially horrible. The purpose of dress is to protect ourselves from inclement weather. What is the second purpose? To preserve our modesty. Both men and women, to protect each one from the modesty. It has some implications are there. So this is the important point. Now what has happened now, dress has become one of the most symbolic of one's wealth, one's beauty, one's that what is called, I am more attractive than somebody else. This has become a huge industry now, and such a falsifying and misleading type of industry. How much of money people waste on this so-called unnecessary dress. So this is one of the mayas of the Divine Mother, because what does this dress, this second type of dress we are discussing, what does it do? Instead of taking away our attention from the body, it is drawing our attention more to the body. So not only dress, even this formation of the body nowadays. It was not troubling people in the Victorian era, but now is the hair, the dress, and the body. But what is the whole point of this? What is spiritual life? To have as less identity with the body as possible. But what is happening here in the name of dress? More identity with the body. And that is why Krishna wanted to be an ideal. That's why his dress is the simplest dress. Yeah, excepting for one piece of cloth, and that same wearing what is called dhuti, he used to put across his shoulders. He could not keep because, not he could not keep, it would not stay. Because he's like a small children, that absence of body consciousness made him do that. Because the dress invariably, it draws our attention. I will just discuss one or two points. If it is cold, then our dress is different. So again, that warmth, what does it draw our attention to? To the body. I want to be comfortable. That is it. And when again summer season comes, we have a different type, summer dress is there. What does that mean again? So you see, apart from saving us, helping us with inclement weather and keeping our modesty, these are the only two purposes of any dress. Anything other than that is only to draw our attention to this body. Do you think the summer dress means less amount of this, a different type of light, etc. But even that one is also there only to draw our attention to the body. That is why Ram Krishna and Holy Mother, the way they dress is also a very ideal to most of us. See, something really wonderful. So anyway, this whole topic came because first, what was the point we discussed? When Sri Ram Krishna used to be dressed in a particular way, he used to be identified with that role. There, the dress, instead of drawing his attention to the body, it actually made him forget the body and identify himself with whatever the dress he was wearing. Later on, Sri Ramakrishna never put on ochre cloth. Only occasionally on his birthday somebody used to put on a little bit. And so why was it that he was not putting on dress? What were the reasons? At least for me, two reasons are there. The first reason is he was not doing it deliberately. It was just his nature not to have any type of dress at all. This is called Paramahamsa state. The second reason is he didn't want to particularly identify himself to say he is a monk. Because monks also have got certain rules, regulations, and they cannot go beyond certain limits. But he had gone what the scriptures call Trigunatita avastha, Atyashrami. Atyashrami means, ashrami, one who is identified with any stage of life is called an ashrami. Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasa. So a sannyasi also is identified with a particular, he has his own rules, regulations, dharma, conduct, code of conduct, behavior, everything is there. But one who has gone beyond the three gunas, he doesn't need. So that was a very natural state for him. So this is the second reason. First reason is he was not doing it deliberately. It was his most natural state. Secondly, he was not putting on because he didn't want to be identified just he is a sannyasi. Then he has to observe certain rules and regulations. But how can he keep Holy Mother with him? If he was that kind of sannyasi, he cannot do it. But he was a Paramahamsa. That means he is beyond all rules and regulations. Who can go beyond rules and regulations? One guidance is there. Nistrai gunye pathi vicharataha ko vidhi ko nishedaha. A person who has gone beyond the three gunas, tamas, rajas and sattva, ko vidhi. What injunction is there? You will have to behave like this. There is no injunction. Ko nishedaha. There is no nishedha. Nishedha means do not do. Do's and don'ts don't apply to a person who has gone beyond the three gunas. And who is a Paramahamsa? He who has gone beyond the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. And according to him, all the three gunas consist of maya. That's why three robbers. Sattva guna is also a robber. He has gone beyond. And a person goes beyond, there is nothing which can bind him any further. A sattva guni also can come down because he is still in the realm of maya. But one who has gone beyond sattva guna, nothing at any time can bind him at all. Now, come back, Swami Vivekananda experienced samadhi by the grace of Sri Ramakrishna. And he was wandering. He went to Khetri. And there was an arrangement of dance program by a Nach girl. And that girl was expecting Swamiji to come and witness. She must have been very, very fortunate woman and also must have been a highly spiritual person. So Swamiji refused. Why did he refuse? Because he was a sannyasi. That was the first idea. I am a monk, I should not be witnessing these dramas by women, etc. But more important, that he should not set by breaking the rules, a precedent. So if Swami Vivekananda can witness, why not I also witness? If he can witness one, I can witness who are adding any number of zeros. So like that, I am sure at that time these women were dressed in a most respectable way. Is that the same fact now? Whenever this dancing and other things go on? Yeah. So you see, where do you draw a line and say, is thus far, no further. You cannot do that. Swamiji was conscious, I am a monk, and not only was a monk, he was a young monk. Not only he was a young monk, he was also one of the most beautiful monks. Yeah, he had to face a lot of problems. Now, the point was, when he was in America, very interesting, was he putting on ochre cloth? Yeah, that kind of, not always. He used to wear like a clerics, this black dress and all those things. And how many people understand that he was a real monk? So people cherished because he was such a magnetic personality. So these Americans and even British people, they would just fall head over heels, they call it, He was like that person. So the point is, he was thinking like that. But what happened? He was not an ordinary monk. He was a man of realization. So this lady also started singing with real earnestness. Prabhu mere avaguna chitta nadharo. O Lord, do not look at my defects. In your eyes, everyone is none else, no other than God. Samadarishi hai namatihar. That word Samadarshi comes in our day-to-day prayers. Premarpana Samadarshana Jaga Jana Dukha Jai. Beautiful words. Samadarishi hai namatihar. And hearing that one, Swamiji thought, why are we still making the distinction that between man and woman? I know that I am not the body. Coming back to our subject, it is tied beautifully. What does a dress remind us? That we are either man or woman. But Swamiji was a man of realization. That means he never identified himself with the body mind. Therefore he cannot say, I am either a man or a woman. Where was the conflict? The conflict was his first idea. You have to remember, he was not, here is a woman, how can I witness a woman's dance? That was not the idea. I am a monk. How can I set a precedent that sannyasis could witness? That was the idea. Then he said, why am I still laboring under these restrictions? I am a man of God. I mean, he did not reason. If for me there is no man, there is no woman. There is only Atma. Therefore he came down and he witnessed, he blessed her, and then he went away. This same idea you can, if you want to understand. Remember that incident when he was in America and he was in a woman's house, and then she had a pet theory that every great man has a weakness. And one day he was moving up and down, and whenever he comes to the mirror, he smiles at himself and stares at himself, and she thought that he thinks he is very, very handsome man, beautiful man, and he could read people's minds. Then he turned and said, what a wonderful thing. When I stand in front of the mirror and look at the reflection, then I am reminded I have a body. What was she thinking and what was his experience? This was the person. So that was the conflict. Anyway, what is important is, anybody who is within these 4 ashramas, they have to observe certain rules, regulations. But anybody who has become a Paramahamsa, there is no question of their slipping down from that ideal, and they can behave whatever way they like. But even though that was true, was Sri Ramakrishna how careful he was when people who do not have that kind of outlook, he used to cover himself and do all those things. Only unconsciously the dress used to slip off with this thing. We discussed these points because the dress is very important. What is the essence of what we discussed? Our dress, our role we are supposed to play, and our behavior, they must all tally. If they don't tally, that means there is some defect and we cannot progress in life. These are some of the changes that came over Sri Ramakrishna after his father's passing away. Then a tremendous new phase is going to open up, and that is what we will be discussing. Next Saturday there would be no class because we are having Kali Puja, but week after that we will be having again. But we will have Gita class on that occasion. Om Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Pada Padme Thayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhu.